Welcome back, everybody. This is Zach with New Angle Sports Talk. Tonight we're going to be recapping Game 3, Bucks Celtics. Fun game in Boston tonight, and really just kind of getting started before we jump into the game. Both teams had a pretty blowout win in each of the games. So the Celtics took Game 1, blew out the Bucks. Bucks took Game 2, blew out the Celtics. So each of them really, even though the Celtics are playing at home, you would expect them to have the momentum and that kind of thing. Really it was pretty close, I would think. I feel like neither team really had the momentum. The Bucks, like I said, they came off with a good Game 2 win, a big-time performance by Giannis. Did it carry over? Let's just jump right in and let's see if it carried over, guys. As usual, the highlights are going to be on this screen for you guys to follow along. Sometimes the highlights get a little bit in front of me. Sometimes they get a little bit behind me. But as a whole, we're going to recap the whole game so you can see the highlights as I'm talking about them. Before we jump in, remember to go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you get all updates anytime I drop a new video. And we'll have another one out tonight with the game between the Portland Trail Blazers and the Denver Nuggets. So keep an eye out on that. I'm actually recapping this one right now, and that one just tipped off a few minutes ago. So I'm going to try to run through this as quick as I can to jump into that game as well too. But still trying to do this one justice as well. So like I said, both teams kind of had the momentum. The two people that did not have the momentum in this series so far with the Celtics was Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum. They've been terrible this series so far. I think last game Jason Tatum had 4 points. It was just neither of them had a lot of points. I think Kyrie had 9 as well, if I remember correctly. Not a good series. Not a good first 2 games for those two players starting out this series. But can they kind of bounce back? And we're going to jump into that and see. But before we do that, I also want to mention Middleton as well too. Has been playing great all series long. Again, he's a first-time All-Star. Can he keep building on it? Can he get a big payday? That kind of thing. And is this somebody that they can really build around in Milwaukee, around Giannis, obviously? So we're going to jump right in. Like I said, starting off first quarter, Boston goes off on a 10-2 run to start the game. The important part about this run is that both Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum had each scored, so they made a concerted effort to kind of get them rolling, together. But it was 4 different people had scored. So Kyrie hit a big 3. Jason Tatum hit a pretty good layup as well too. Right after that 10-2 run, though, Milwaukee answered, and Boston actually missed 7 straight shots right after that run. And that was until Kyrie Irving got a pretty big layup, and then also Jason Tatum then hit a mid-range jumper as well too. So again, they started off kind of highlighting those two players to try to get them going. They kind of steered away from that for just a bit, and then they kind of reallocated it. They kind of refocused on that game plan, and then they kind of bounced back after that. Now, right after that, they had Boston went on another 11-2 run to end the quarter. That was later in the quarter, but that's kind of, again, another building point at that point. During that run, though, after they made that 11-2 run, Bledsoe had gotten a layup, and then Kyrie answered with a 3-point attempt. He didn't make it, but he got fouled, and he hit three free throws, and made them. So, kind of answered. He's kind of keeping the momentum. He's a dog on that team. He's got to be the leader on that team. He's got to be able to. He's the closer. He's clutch. Everybody knows that, especially with the Cavs version of Kyrie, especially. He's got to make plays like that, and that's his role in that team. His role is to be the best player on the team, obviously, but also his role is to be the closer and to be kind of the steady hand, so to speak, in that offense, especially on offense. Right after that, though, I also want to highlight before we jump into quarter 2 was Giannis was on fire. He had 8 points. Pat Connaughton had 8 points as well. Drew Bledsoe had 5 points. Those were the 3 leading scorers for the Bucks. Bledsoe, though, he shot 2 for 9, so he didn't have a very good game shooting in the first quarter. But in the game in general, he actually ended with 9 points and shot 4-15. So he didn't do too hot. Eric Bledsoe didn't. He went 0 for 4 in free throws and made only 1 3-pointer out of 6 attempts. So Eric Bledsoe is kind of a non-factor in this game. I'll just tell you up front. But Pat Connaughton and some other guys I'll mention as well too in just a second. They really stepped up and really gave them some really good minutes. There's some of those guys that had stepped up, like I said, Pat Connaughton, also George Hill as well too. And Bledsoe was still struggling even at the end of the half as well too. At that point, he took one more shot, so he took 9 in the first quarter, then took his 10th one in the second quarter. Still ended up with 5 points. That's it. He didn't do any better. Again, he was kind of more of a non-factor at that point. But somebody who stepped up with the Celtics, and he had some pretty big highlights, in the game just in general, but especially in the second and the third quarter as well, was Jaylen Brown. He's been playing great, and in the first few minutes of the second quarter, he had a huge block on Snell. Excuse me, I said Shell. On Snell, the guy from the Bucks. I can't remember his first name. I'm going blank now, but he had a huge block on him. Again, that kind of got the whole crowd pumped up. At the end of the half, though, Boston would be up by only 1 point, 56-55. And really, both teams were pretty close as far as like the stats go. They were pretty much on par with each of them. There wasn't really one team that kind of got ahead of the other. They were both kind of even kill. The big story with the Bucks, though, is they had a lot of production from their bench. And then for the Celtics, they had a lot of production elsewhere, like on their Jaylen Brown, like I said as well too. Kyrie Irving had a big night. Jason Tatum started off really slow, but he ended up picking it up, especially in the second half. But Al Horford was one of the other big guys as well too that they kind of leaned on as well, especially in the first half. Now jumping into the third quarter, we're going to talk about Jaylen Brown again here because he had, like I said, he had a huge block a few minutes into the second quarter. He had a huge dunk with 9:22 left. In the third quarter. If you're going to see this on ESPN tonight. You're going to see this on social media. His dunk on Giannis that he had it with like about 9:22 left in the quarter, or I'm sorry, in the third quarter. And it should have honestly been an and one. He dunked it right over Giannis, and Giannis kind of held him in the chest a little bit. Should have been an and one. It was clean anyways. No big deal. Just keep on playing, keep on moving, that kind of thing. Now, one of the big strategies that the Celtics were kind of trying to implement with Giannis is because, again, he had a fantastic night. Like I said, he ended with 32 points on 8 of 13 shooting. But his big thing was free throws, and we'll talk about that in just a second as well too. But his big thing was just scoring really efficiently and also just setting his teammates with good passes, good looks as well too. Giannis was getting double-teamed nearly every single play he touched the ball on offense, and that was practically every play, I felt like, because he touches the ball almost every time. But they did a good job as far as like counteracting that. I think Mike Budenholzer did a really good job as far as, usually when you're double teamed, what you have to have to escape double teams that are being consistently thrown at you is movement on the offensive end. So if you catch the ball, if you face up or whatever, if you're back to the basket or whatever, because usually they were double teaming him in the post or in the mid range when he caught it. How you get past that is just cutting to the basket or freeing up shooters on the three-point land. They didn't really do a lot of that, honestly. But what they did instead was Giannis, again, that was just Giannis being Giannis. He was being very, very aggressive in the third quarter, and they shot a lot of free throws in the third quarter, a lot of free throws. I jumped on my Twitter for a second there during the third quarter especially, and Celtics fans were all over on Twitter talking about the refs and stuff like that. But again, we're going to talk about the free throws in just a second as well too. But it really wasn't. I mean, they were fouling them, and I think Celtics fans were getting more just upset that their players were fouling Giannis because it was getting annoying because he kept making the free throws, compared to them actually getting crappy calls because they weren't. They were actual fouls. If you just watched it and you weren't being biased, if you watched it, they were good calls. It was just they couldn't quit fouling him. And what are you going to do? It's Giannis. I mean, a lot of times they had Jason Tatum on him and Jaylen Brown. Now, Jaylen Brown's a good defender. Jason Tatum's a good defender as well too. I would say Jaylen Brown's the better defender than over Tatum, but they kind of picked their matchups really well. I thought the Bucks did. They kind of knew that the double team was coming, it looks like, and they specifically kind of set them up so that he could take the best matchup that he could get and kind of spread out his body a little bit, get wide, cut the defenders if he needs to, step up for a layup or step up for a shot, and then a lot of times he kept getting fouled. But about mid third quarter, Giannis went to the bench, and this is kind of where the Bucks started turning it up a notch. Actually, they went on a 12-0 run with Giannis on the bench. Now, at the end of this run, Giannis would actually sub back in, but in that span, George Hill hit 2 big-time threes, and he had a big-time dunk as well too. George Hill's kind of a vet. He is definitely a vet in this league. He doesn't have the same step that he once had when he was younger. But he had this really clean blow-by on Kyrie. Kyrie was guarding him, and just kind of let him go by, it seemed like. But George Hill did a really good job as far as getting that first step down, got by Kyrie really quickly, and had a clean dunk right down the middle. What are you going to do? Third quarter scoring, though, was the Bucks' favor. They outscored the Celtics by 9 in the third quarter. Jumping into the fourth quarter, though, just to wrap up this live stream a little bit here, Jaylen Brown Again, he was the big-time player, especially in the second quarter and third quarter. But he actually got his fifth foul with about 10:46 left in the fourth quarter in the game. I thought the fifth foul was actually kind of bogus. The third foul was legit. I'm sorry, the fourth foul was legit, but the fifth foul was kind of, they called it late. I just don't like them calling it late. It probably was a foul when it happened, but they didn't blow the whistle, so it seems like they were going to let it play on, which usually tends to happen in the playoffs. But then they called it like a whole 2 or 3 seconds later, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a long time. How many dribbles do you get down in 2 to 3 seconds? So it was kind of a lot. I felt like they called it anyways, but it's foul, fifth foul, whatever. No big deal. But again, like I said, just to kind of highlight again, wrapping around with some of the key players tonight. Kyrie Irving had 29. Again, he did not have a good first 2 games. He came out and shot a lot better. 29 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, but specifically from free throw, he went 11 of 12. From the field, he went 8 of 22. So again, not that good, but over 41 minutes, he was able to stay effective, especially in the free throw line. And I think I'm going to just keep circling around some of the Boston players real quick who played effective. Like I said, Jason Tatum didn't have a great first half, but turned it on with a double-double actually in the second half. He had 20 points, 11 rebounds. Only had one turnover as well. And he shot 6 for 6 from the free throw line. The Celtics, as just in general, the whole team shot really well from the free throw line. I know that in the third quarter especially, it felt like the Bucks were getting every single call, and even the beginning of the fourth quarter as well too. But actually, the Bucks only shot 4 more free throws than the Celtics did. So it's not like give me a break. It's not that big of a deal. And the Celtics went 30 of 32. The Bucks went 24 of 26. So the Celtics, even though they did have less attempts, the Celtics did make more free throws than them or whatever. So, but I know I just bunny trailed on that a little bit. But Jaylen Brown, he had 18 points again. He was very effective, I thought, and it wasn't just his scoring either. He was third on the team with scoring, but it was his whole player movement tonight was just fantastic. He was in the right position. He got good box outs. It was just all the off-ball stuff and all the defensive stuff that really made him, in my opinion, probably the player of the game for the Celtics tonight. But circling over to the Milwaukee, because I know this stream is about to end, Giannis had 32 points, 8 assists, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks. Did have 5 turnovers. Chris Middleton did have 5 turnovers as well, so they combined for 10. But Chris Middleton did have 20 points. He shot 6 of 12 from the floor and 5 of 6 from free throw. So I know I'm just streaming through these, but basically I wanted to bring this up because Chris Middleton had a bounce back game, or he's been solid, but he just had another good game. Giannis had a really good game as well too. Giannis specifically, he had a good first game as well too. The only problem with Giannis is he just didn't shoot very efficiently as well. It's kind of the same thing with him and Kawhi Leonard. They're both going to put up their numbers. They're both going to be really good and really just put their whole team in the best position to win. But the real question is, can their number 2 option, number 3 option, can their supporting cast step up? And that's usually the difference in the game. In this game, it specifically had to do with players like Chris Middleton and also George Hill. George Hill had 21 points, so he was just fantastic as well too. Pat Connaughton as well too, 14 points. Like I said, he crushed it in the first quarter, and he is one of those players just like Jaylen Brown, him and George Hill. So Pat Connaughton and George Hill were just like Jaylen Brown with their off-ball movement, player positioning, IQ basketball players. They did a really good job. I think Pat Connaughton should get more minutes in the playoffs, especially in this series, because he's doing pretty decent, especially in this game. It's something good to build off of. Let him keep building off of that. George Hill, same thing. He's a vet. You can rely on him. Again, maybe he doesn't have a 21-point game again in the series, but it is something where you can rely on him, especially when Giannis goes on the bench. So, guys, that was my recap. As you can see, the Bucks had won the game 123-116. Again, series isn't over. Celtics just come back, win game 4. It's that simple. It's not that simple, I guess, but that's really what it comes down to is just, the Bucks don't have the momentum at this point. It's up in the air still. They have something to build off of, but it's not like you're down to a 3-1 deficit. It's only 2-1 right now. Come out, win game 4, and you'll be right back in this, and you'll be in the same position. It's like as if the series started over again. Basically, you guys are even. You need to get back even if you're a Celtic. Now, if you're a Buck, specifically everybody not named Giannis, you have to step up. Giannis is just going to do that anyways. But Pat Connaughton, George Hill, Chris Middleton, Brooke Lopez. You got to hit your shots, and you got to build off this in game 4 as well too coming up. So that was it, guys. Again, I'll have my recap with Denver and Portland out tonight. As always, guys, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.